Welcome back to another episode of Pardon Our Promotion. How is everybody doing today?
Very good.
Yeah? How's your candy?
It's not candy.
Oh, what do you got there?
All right.
Don't touch
Our
it.
producer, Gage Dana, is busting my chops about this candy bar wrapper because it's making too much noise.
Yeah, it is.
But you know what? This is like, this is not a paid endorsement. This is just an endorsement for what it's worth. Robert Irvine's Fit Crunch. Just wonderfully, wonderfully awesome. It's supposed to be a power bar. It's a candy bar, but it's a power bar. And it's a great protein bar. Man, I eat these too often, probably.
Gage is like, stop touching it.
So I won't touch it again, Gage. No more noise. But yeah, I want to bring up, I'm going to have to stop talking because my mouth is full. But I'm going to, a spontaneous topic.
Yeah.
YouTube are producing shows, literally producing remote shows for teams, our VirtCh teams. We have Visual as our main company and VirtCh as our broadcast company. And one of our newest products this year is actually the VirtCh Producer, which is really interesting because it's kind of way out of the box. We're actually literally doing the game day operations for a few franchises. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear your insight on how that is working and why, and why we're even doing it. I know this almost sounds like a paid advertisement, but the interesting thing about it, there's nuances of what we're doing that really apply across the country. And let's discuss what you're doing. Tell the fans out there what you're doing.
I mean,
or the fan. We have one, right? Yeah.
Thanks. No, I think it's been great. Obviously, there's traveling around to seeing a bunch of minor league shows. There's a need for some kind of professional direction and professional instruction and scripting and show development in the industry, and it's been at a very high level really awesome being able to go into these organizations and implement scripts and ideas and elements and show features that they didn't have.
Yeah. And there have been things that we've had to think about that we've never really had to think about. I mean, the two of us have produced a lot of shows on our own, mm-hmm. Separately, for whatever we're producing for. But when you're doing it on, like, at the level that we're doing it, so we're doing it remotely, we're not on site, you have to think about so many other things that you don't typically have to think about in a normal production. Well, first has just been the process in general of how we're going to communicate day to day, week to week, homestand to homestand, how we're going to do that remotely with their on-site people.
with at least the same effect of somebody local, but mm-hmm. hopefully a better effect, right? Mm-hmm. The management of that. So going back to the reason why we're doing this, you alluded to it. All these shows where there's inconsistency, mm-hmm. Inconsistency from day to day, from operator to operator, just like in a lot of areas in the minors and small colleges and stuff. When somebody's really good at what they do, they leave. Mm-hmm. And they go up a level, or they go to another job or something that pays more, and so these teams struggle with that consistency in their brand, with the way they put their brand out in their arenas and facilities. Their show goes up and down, and it works. And the reason why we're doing this podcast in the first place is because VirtCh came around to add consistency to the broadcast and the show production and creative, a higher quality, a more consistent thing for less money, right? And so again, going back to the VirtCh Producer, it's that same thing. There's this revolving door of talent, revolving door of operators and producers that teams have to struggle with to make their brand consistent from year to year, right? And that's one of the things this solves. And I guess the other piece of it is the ironic name called franchise. I've talked with league presidents over the years and all this kind of stuff. It's always kind of this weird side knowledge that everyone has that it's supposed to be a franchise. That means the McDonald's hamburger should taste the same in Washington, D.C. as it does in Spokane, Washington, right? That's a franchise. Yet the show between the franchises of different, whatever sport it is, from one franchise to the other, is tremendously inconsistent.
Yep.
The fan, this show is wonderful in a certain area. Then that fan may go to another minor league sport and see a totally awful show.
Yep.
Why is that? Why you should be called a franchise then?
Right.
Because you should just call it an individual operator show.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. That's what it is. I mean, even if there's several organizations out there that own multiple teams, right? So you would think that the philosophy is from the top down and it spreads into these teams, and each one has a very high level product, where the reality is one could have a great product and the other one could have a terrible product, because we have different people using different philosophies scripting their shows.
Right. This
centralizes it a little bit. You have one entertaining show that looks a lot different. There's a lot of different little wrinkles in there that makes a show in California different from a show in New York. Even though it's the same script, it can look a lot different, which is pretty unique. And I mean,
so yeah, elaborate on that. And that's where we're kind of dovetailed back to this VirtCh Producer thing, because what you're saying is we're able to produce a show in California and in New York that's similar and consistent and high quality, but different, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So how does that work? How do you do it?
How do we do that, Lindsey?
Nice deflection.
Yeah.
How much time
It's a little more complicated.
Spotlight on Lindsey. Awesome answer, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we incorporate different aspects of their region, of their community into the script that we've built. So this awesome, entertaining show that we have all of these elements for, and then you go to California and they have very specific things that they do there. So then we're taking our same philosophy, our same structure, our same approach at a different, topic or theme that we would plan in New York, but we're doing that specifically for California. So even though it's all kind of the same, like we're thinking about, touch points and headshots and all of these different things, the process is the same, but the topic is different. So I think do you think?
Yeah, that reminded me, and this could be an urban myth. So I might extend this myth. But if you go and drink a Coca-Cola in the Southeast, it's going to taste different than a Coca-Cola in maybe Vancouver, British Columbia.
Why?
Because of the local tastes of that region. So Coca-Cola changes that recipe a little bit based on a region.
Really? I
right?
didn't know that.
Now, it could be an urban myth, right?
Have you ever had Mexican Coke? I think that's
or if you go to a different country or whatever, right? So they just change, they nuance it, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing I was going to say with McDonald's is maybe in certain places they have the McRib, okay, and somewhere else they don't. And it's because that region really likes it. But the basic building of that sandwich and everything that has to do with that is very consistent throughout the whole, whether it's a McRib over here or a Big Mac over here. The way they put it together and deliver it is the same. And that's what you're talking about, I think, with the fact that the mascot intro, for instance, can run incredibly similar at two different franchises in a very well-produced way. But it could look totally different to those two different franchises, right? And that's the beauty of, I think, what you guys, to be blunt, have developed. Yeah. And when you're working with these teams.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that is so incredible about VirtCh Show Producer, which we've noticed, is there's, on all of our consulting clients, if I go and consult with a client, I'm spending a game or two with them, and I'm telling them, how they can improve their show, certain things that we should look at and whatnot, but then I'm leaving. And it's up to them to execute. It's up to them to kind of carry that through and carry our notes through. Whereas this allows us to be much more hands-on throughout the entire season.
You're essentially in charge.
Correct.
And that's a very good point, because as a consultant in the O's, I did a lot of consulting with sports teams across the country. And everyone would nod their head. Oh, this is the greatest thing. And everything really we're talking about in this podcast series. Oh, so many cool ideas, and how do you implement it? But you give it, we were talking about it yesterday, you give it to the client, they're nodding their head, 3-day seminar, we're talking about all these great changes, and then you leave town, back to the old habit, you know, and you could say that with, you know, ticket sales, consultants and everything else. That's one of the frustrating thing with consultants is they come on with this new plan, but it's hard for the team to take that plan and execute it into some reality. You could say it with, you know, I've got a workout, I got a guy that, whatever, my exercise trainer, and boy, when you're with that person, you are kicking ass, right? And then you don't exercise at all next week.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that right now. So what you're saying is that hands-on. The fact that it's not this franchises show. It is. But it's our responsibility. It's your responsibility for the whole fan experience for these different franchises we've been working with. So that that day-to-day hands-on, even if it's remote, is very crucial. Right?
Yeah, because we're giving them the plan. We're giving them everything that they need to do and the step-by-step, when they need to do it, how they need to do it, where they go to do it, and then we're also there saying, hey, did you do it? So we're keeping them in line.
And of course, it dovetails with the graphics and all the other stuff that gets produced. Because again, there's that, you know, we talked in an earlier podcast about that fourth P, producing. They can plan, they can push, they can do all the rest of the stuff, they can promote, and then they fail on the producing piece. And again, then all of a sudden, boy, you're back at square one. If you've planned this and you spend all these hours and it just falls flat, whatever the promotion is, whatever the night is, whether it's an individual promotion for a certain game element or it's the entire night. And that's the other thing is where you guys are producing the entire season, right?
Correct.
All the promotional schedule and every specific script. Right?
Yeah, the promotional schedule is a whole nother piece of this that we can go into, but planning out, you know, the promotions, the entertainment themes, and how we activate those, and, you know, delivering the roadmap to a client on how to accomplish a successful theme night and promotion is, you know, it's been pretty awesome to see. And the other thing we're doing for our current clients, we've just added over 200 elements to their sponsorship and group sales inventory.
Inventory, saleable inventory goes up. Yeah, it's, you know, again, going back 15 years ago when I was running around the country consulting, I would literally take this knowledge from Team A, and I'd be teaching a 3-day seminar, but I'd be learning as I'm going. Is this what you do? Wow, that's a great promotion. I go to Team B. Did you know what these guys are doing? It was like, boy, you know, Bob's got this big brain power. I'm like, no, it's nothing that I ever invented. It's all these people that I've visited for the last 2 decades. And I've just accumulated that knowledge, and now it's all coming out. And so, yeah, it grew. I noticed it grew over that decade, my knowledge base, and I was able to share that knowledge base with teams. And so that is very helpful, is to be able to bring that in, because again, teams, so often they'll hire some rookie. In fact, we just talked about somebody that, I don't remember, I'm not going to call the name of, but they came and they didn't even know what certain events are, like the Disney Bat Race or whatever. They don't even know what it is. I'm like, really, you're putting that person in charge of your show? They don't even know how an element runs or what an element name is? That's a little tough. So you do bring that level of expertise and like that accumulated knowledge base that essentially our company has, and we're able to give that to a team at a much higher level, higher quantity, higher level, for them to sell and produce.
And because of the working arrangement between our clients, so because we're remote and because we have to communicate and we make sure we're on the same page with everything, it forces us to communicate early and often, and really kind of get our ducks in a row well before the season. So, you know, when you're in an office setting and you're going in every day with your team, you guys might wait to talk about something a couple of weeks because you're with them every day, you're always together. This process has kind of forced us to identify those situations and hold other teams accountable to hit deadlines, hit milestones, so that we can plan their show effectively. And so it allows everyone to be much more organized, which probably wouldn't exist. And that shows every season with teams that they're not organized.
Well, it definitely doesn't exist. Right. I think that's one of the biggest problems. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is this process of what we're doing. It's brand new. I don't know if anyone has ever done it before. it has forced us to be way ahead of the game because we have to think about those things that a normal producer wouldn't have to think about. So we are, ready to produce a show tomorrow, and it's February 3rd. So it's like...
Right. So how good is that first show going to be? Again, and the reason why I say that is like, how many events have you produced or overseen or even watched of opening day or opening night in any particular franchise where everything is just going sideways because they're not prepared
every time?
Because they're not, nobody's trained, they're not prepared. And again, I'm going back to the fact that teams spend money, franchises spend money on consultants, and a lot actually, and they bring them in, and for a weekend, a consultant comes back twice over the course of the year for a one-day trip, and they're writing checks for between 10 grand and 100 grand for this consultant to tell them what to do. And it doesn't take.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't take because they leave town and everyone goes back to doing what they usually do. You talk to a consultant. The consultants want them to do what they're telling them to do, but they only have so much reach right, when they leave town. And this actually takes the consultancy and it just kind of dovetails it with the operations. It never ends. The consultancy happens 24/7, 365.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that our home openers aren't going to be chaotic. They're always chaotic.
They always are.
But we've had our show scripted, our home opener, since December.
Yeah.
And
for baseball.
For baseball.
Yeah.
Yep. For an April date. And most minor league teams, most independent ball teams can't say the same. So it's been pretty cool, pretty rewarding. But yeah, we could talk a lot about that.
We can. And I'll bring up a couple more points, but we will have to let it go. You mentioned that it hasn't really been done, and it really has in a certain way, but not as all-encompassing. Like the NBA years ago started saying, first break in the third quarter, you're going to play an upbeat song, and it's going to like this. The mascot skit is in the third quarter break, and they did that on a kind of a league-wide level. In fact, I'm not exactly sure. Again, I talked to a lot of different operators. I think there was even a playlist for different music, and then don't play this, coming down from on high. So production standards set at the league level, certain ways that those events ran. NFL does the same thing. But they do that more than just mandates. Like you have to stay inside this parameter for this break in the action. What you guys have done is you said, we will not only stay inside that parameter, we're going to set the parameter and produce that parameter.
Yeah.
So it runs consistently. So the cool thing about how that works on, now the promo teams, the talent, the back of the house all know what to do way ahead of time. Okay, so the camera shots are better and crisper because it runs consistently from day to day. It might be a different show. In fact, that's another interesting thing is not of all the 60 or 70 baseball shows you guys are going to produce at these teams, not one of them is the same. It's 70 different shows, which is cool. But the core, how they run, where the camera shots are and how people enter the field, all that is consistent. So that helps the directors of the AV equipment manage that equipment better in a more consistent way, which is a whole nother benefit to the thing.
And we have, like Scott was talking about, we have 200 elements fully scripted already. So in theory, the camera operators right now in this current moment could go look at that script and say, hey, okay, I know for this element I have to do this and this and this. So like they can prepare and plan way ahead of time, which is something that
So you have talent direction, camera direction, and all that in the script. You guys are producing the Oscars essentially. Like where every camera shot is and when those camera shots should be, happening or how they should be happening. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal than flying by the seat of your pants, which pretty much everybody does in the minors.
Doing an element for the very first time in front of a live audience with really no direction. Like, hey, we're gonna do this new on-field element tonight. Here's kind of the idea, but we're gonna play.
We're gonna wing it.
Yeah. That's not how it is.
I hope our sponsor is happy.
Yeah.
And I hope our fans react well.
Cross our fingers.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty great. And I think there's a whole lot of different things that it solves for. And, you know, when it comes to training your staff and all that stuff, where, you know, we're not just delivering a huge script here, we're actually training your people to make them better producers, better show callers, better operators. And so the entire organization is going to thrive from the relationship. So pretty cool opportunity. We're doing a lot more stuff, and maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. But
yeah, that seemed like a big commercial, which it kind of was, to be blunt. But it's something that industry needs, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, we're talking about
because there needs to be consistency from show to show, and it's just going to be better for the fans and the sponsors and everybody. So yeah,
and it's something that we could definitely talk about for probably days on end, just because we are so passionate about it, and we care a lot about it.
You know what else? I'm passionate about Robert Irvine.
Not again. Robert. Someone call Robert.
I don't know who this guy is, but he makes a heck of a milk and cookie fitness bar.
All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions about VirtCh Show Producer, drop us a message, or if you want to have a discussion about what we can do for you, also let us know that too. We'd love to chat about that. But until next time, until our next sit down.
I'm going to eat. Come on, wrap it up.
Right.
I'm going to eat.
It's all about your fans. So see you guys.
I'm going to eat.
Okay.